Welcome to the Deep Dive. We take your sources, articles, research notes, and really pull out the key insights to get you up to speed. Today, we're plunging into something that touches millions. How anxiety really impacts our closest relationships. If you've ever felt that knot of worry about someone you care about, or maybe you're supporting someone who does, this deep dive is definitely for you. Our mission: to give you insights, some tools, and honestly hope to build stronger connections. We'll look at the science, some real patterns, and practical strategies. And look, if you're listening and this feels familiar, you're really not alone. Understanding this stuff is the first step. It truly is.
Yeah, it's so easy to underestimate how deeply anxiety can weave itself into relationships. We're not just talking general nerves, are we? It's the specific, often quite debilitating pattern: fear, doubt, worry, all focused on our connections. And unpacking it is just so important because the ripple effects, they touch everything, often without us even realizing what's really going on.
All right, let's get into that. Relationship anxiety. It sounds general, but what really makes it different? What's the core of it?
Well, at its heart, it's the specific pattern, like I said: worry, fear, doubt, but specifically about connections with others. It's more than first date jitters, you know? It's that constant hum of, does my partner still love me? Or a really deep fear of being abandoned, even when things seem okay. And this shows up in a few ways. There's what we call attachment-based anxiety, that fear you'll be left, always needing reassurance. Then there's performance anxiety in relationships, that little voice saying, am I doing this right? Am I a good enough partner? What if I mess up? And social anxiety, but specifically within your personal connections, fearing judgment from friends, worrying about embarrassing yourself, dreading group things.
That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
And the neuroscience here is fascinating, isn't it? When anxiety flares up, the amygdala, brain's sort of alarm bell goes into overdrive. It gets hyperactive, just constantly scanning for threats, even in relationships that are actually safe.
Right, and here's the kicker. Your brain sometimes can't tell the difference between, say, a real danger, like a physical threat, and something like a delayed text message. Sounds kind of wild, but that perceived threat can trigger the same fight or flight response. So you get this flood of stress hormones, cortisol, adrenaline for danger that isn't actually there. Imagine living with that constant hypervigilance. It just completely exhausts your nervous system, and yeah, it exhausts the relationship too.
That sounds utterly draining, just living on high alert all the time. How does that internal state actually, play out? What common patterns do we see in relationships?
We definitely see a few recurring patterns. One of the most common and honestly destructive is the pursuit-withdrawal cycle. Think of it like this. One partner, feeling anxious, constantly pursues, seeking reassurance, needing closeness, wanting to talk things through right now, while the other partner feels overwhelmed by that intensity and starts to withdraw, needing space, shutting down, feeling flooded. They're both trying to cope, really, but it creates this awful loop, pushing them further apart.
So that internal alarm is just stuck on high, always seeing danger. And that leads to being hyper aware, right? Like overly sensitive to small things.
Exactly. That's hypervigilance to threat. People with relationship anxiety can become almost too good at reading microexpressions or shifts in tone. But the problem is they often misinterpret neutral cues, like a partner being quiet because they're tired as rejection or a sign something's wrong.
Right. And then there's the trap of needing constant reassurance.
Ah, yes, the reassurance trap. It's such a tough one. You crave that validation that everything's okay, and it does soothe you temporarily, but it creates this dependency, and it never actually quiets the underlying anxiety. Plus, it can really wear out the person providing the reassurance. It becomes this endless cycle.
I can only imagine how draining that is for everyone. It's clear how it impacts the person with the anxiety. But this isn't just about romance, is it? How does this anxiety show up elsewhere, like in friendships?
Oh, absolutely. Let's take friendships. Have you ever found yourself, say, constantly overanalyzing interactions, wondering if your friends really want you there?
Yeah. Or maybe feeling like you have to say yes to everything.
That's a big one. People-pleasing. Avoiding conflict at all costs, worrying you're being a burden. It's often a strategy to manage that fear of rejection. You end up exhausted trying to keep everyone happy.
And that can lead to comparing yourself too, right?
Yeah.
Like in group settings.
Definitely. Social comparison, measuring your friendships against others, feeling inadequate, worrying your connection isn't as strong as someone else's. It just fuels the insecurity.
Okay, and what about family? That seems like a whole other layer of complexity.
Oh, it is. You often see generational patterns. If you grew up with an anxious parent, you might have learned implicitly that relationships are fragile or the world is unsafe. That shapes your own adult connections. It can also lead to role confusion. maybe taking on caretaking roles, finding it hard to set boundaries, or feeling like your well-being is totally tangled up with your family's moods. And then, of course, there's holiday and gathering stress. Supposedly happy times become these minefields of worry about conflict, judgment, disappointing people. It's intense.
Wow. Okay, so if communication is the bedrock, like everyone says, what happens when anxiety starts chipping away at it? Where do the cracks show first?
A major one is decreased effective listening. You're not really hearing what's being said. Instead, you're kind of listening for rejection or criticism or signs of abandonment. It's sometimes called defensive listening. You're filtering everything through that anxiety lens.
That makes total sense. And I guess that leads to assuming you know what the other person is thinking.
Exactly. Mind reading. Instead of just asking, hey, what's up? You jump to conclusions. I know you're annoyed with me. When maybe they're just stressed about work, it causes so many needless conflicts. And then there's emotional flooding. The anxiety just gets so overwhelming that your rational brain kind of shuts down. Productive conversation, pretty much impossible in that state.
And when communication gets that difficult, it must hit trust and intimacy hard. Like being vulnerable probably feels terrifying.
It feels incredibly dangerous, yes. Sharing your real fears or needs feels way too risky when you're convinced it might lead to rejection, and trust becomes conditional. Instead of building that secure base over time through consistent actions, you might feel you need constant, almost hourly reassurance just to feel okay. That's not sustainable. And sometimes, unconsciously, people start avoiding intimacy. If getting close feels scary because it opens you up to potential hurt, you might pull back without even realizing it.
This all paints a really difficult picture for the person experiencing it. But what about their partner? What's it actually like being on the other side of this?
It's so important we talk about this too. It's not about blame, but acknowledging the impact. Partners often say they feel like they're walking on eggshells. They're constantly trying to manage the situation, avoid triggers. It's exhausting. They can feel emotionally drained from giving reassurance that never seems to stick. There can be frustration, like, why isn't my love enough to make them feel secure? And sometimes guilt. Guilt for having their own needs when their partner is struggling so much. Addressing the anxiety really does benefit everyone involved. It's a relationship issue, not just an individual one.
Right, absolutely. So, okay, let's shift focus. Breaking the cycle. There has to be hope, right? What can individuals actually do? Where's a good place to start?
Oh, absolutely, there's hope. A really powerful starting point is mindfulness and present moment awareness. Anxiety thrives in the future, the what ifs, you know? So when you feel that spiral starting, try grounding yourself. Use the 5 senses exercise. Name 5 things you see, 4 you can touch, 3 you hear, 2 you smell, 1 you taste. It pulls you back to the now.
That's practical. I like that. And what about those anxious thoughts themselves? Can you challenge them?
Definitely. This draws from CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. It's about challenging anxious thoughts. When that thought hits, my partner's pulling away, pause. Ask, what's the actual evidence for this? What evidence contradicts it? What would I tell a friend thinking this? Is there any other explanation?
Okay, so questioning the thoughts. And what about managing the feeling itself when it hits?
That's where self-soothing strategies come in. Learning how to calm your own nervous system is key. Deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, journaling it out, getting some exercise, even doing something creative that absorbs your attention. Find what works for you.
And just noticing the patterns too, I suppose.
Yes. Building self-awareness. When does your anxiety spike? Is it when your partner seems stressed? When a friend doesn't text back quickly? Before family events? Knowing your triggers means you can prepare. Use your strategies proactively instead of just reacting when it hits.
Okay, that makes sense for the individual. What about the partners, the loved ones? How can they help without getting caught in that reassurance trap?
Great question. It's about validation without enabling. Acknowledge the feeling. I see you're feeling really worried right now. That shows you understand. But instead of just jumping to reassure, of course I love you. Maybe ask, what do you think might help you feel a bit more grounded right now? Empower them to use their own tools.
And actions speak louder than words sometimes.
Often, yes. Consistent actions build security. Being reliable, following through, maintaining routines. These things create a sense of safety that constant verbal reassurance sometimes can't.
And it's okay to suggest getting outside help.
Absolutely. Encouraging professional help is a sign of care. It's saying, I love you, and I think getting some expert support could really help us both.
So what about strategies for couples to use together? How can they tackle this as a team?
Creating safety together is huge. This might mean developing rituals like a daily check-in, not just about logistics, but about feelings. Agreeing on how you'll handle anxiety spikes when they happen. Regularly appreciating each other. Being clear about schedules so there are fewer unknowns.
I've heard about taking a pause when things get heated.
Yes, the pause practice. It's brilliant. When anxiety is high or communication is breaking down, either person can call a timeout, maybe 20 minutes. Enough time for both to calm down, self-soothe, and then come back to the conversation more ready to listen and connect rather than react. And drawing from things like emotionally focused therapy, there are attachment strengthening exercises, things like really practicing expressing needs clearly, responding to the emotion behind your partner's words first, then the content, sharing specific appreciations, making time for positive, shared experiences.
These are great strategies, but sometimes you do need more support. When is it time to seriously consider professional help?
Definitely consider it if the anxiety is really impacting daily life, your job, or just your ability to function in relationships. If you're using substances to cope with the stress, if it's stopping you from forming or keeping relationships. Also, if your partner is feeling really burnt out from supporting you, that's a sign the dynamic needs help. And certainly, if there are thoughts of self-harm or behaviors driven by anxiety that are damaging the relationship, please reach out for professional help immediately.
And what kind of help is actually effective? What works?
There are several good options. For individuals, therapies like CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy, or psychodynamic therapy can be really effective. For couples, EFT, emotionally focused therapy, and the Gottman method are excellent. They directly address how anxiety impacts the relationship dynamic. Sometimes medication can be helpful, usually alongside therapy, to manage severe symptoms while you build coping skills. And don't underestimate support groups. Connecting with others who get it can be incredibly validating and helpful.
Okay, as we wrap this up, let's hit the key takeaways. First, and maybe most importantly, relationship anxiety is common. It's treatable. You're not broken. Your relationships aren't doomed. There is hope.
Second, remember, it affects both partners. Healing really is a team effort, even if the anxiety feels more located in one person.
Third, focus on small, consistent changes. Don't try to fix everything overnight. Pick one strategy, practice it, build momentum.
Fourth, getting professional help. That's strength, not weakness. It's like seeing a specialist for any other health concern. And finally, maybe the most crucial point, you are worthy of love and secure connection, anxiety or not. Anxiety is part of your experience. It doesn't define your worth. Healing happens in connection, not isolation.
That's a really powerful thought to end on. If this deep dive resonated, please do share it. Someone you know might need to hear this. Thanks so much for joining us today.